Hello, everyone. Just wanted to welcome you guys back for our second session of Zoom Talks. Today, we're going to be talking about our journeys that basically led each of us into doing this work. So for me, growing up, I really felt like my reality was kind of split into two different worlds because I grew up in a low-income neighborhood that was half African-American residents and half Latinx residents. But I went to school at private schools that were mostly middle and upper class white students. So for me, it was very stark, the difference between the two worlds. And I feel like I gained a lot of the characteristics that make me who I am through that experience. Specifically, there was a particular book that I read towards the end of high school that kind of helped me kind of make sense of all of the experiences that I had had. And that book was called Mountains Beyond Mountains by Tracy Kidder. And basically, it's the biography of a physician, an anthropologist, and humanitarian named Dr. Paul Farmer. And so he's really kind of what exposed me to the field of public health, which is my background in coming to this work. And for me, it was really revolutionary because, before reading the book, I thought health careers really consisted of just a doctor and maybe a nurse. Because also, like, my parents didn't go to college and I didn't really have them to really look to in terms of like potential careers, what I could think about doing. So for me, that was a big deal to learn about the field of public health. And then the other thing was that he really focuses his work on marginalized groups all over the world, really. And for me, that was kind of a big deal to realize that, the only things or the things that affect health are not just kind of biology and genetics. There are other things too, like poverty, racism, where you're born, things like that. So those two ideas kind of really propelled me into going into college. And in college, I studied, like, I guess my college's version of public health, which they called it global health, as well as cultural anthropology. So I really was able to kind of analyze what they call the social determinants of health, which is basically those things like poverty, racism, that really impact your health, but aren't necessarily, they're kind of the root causes of a lot of health problems. So for me, in college and immediately post-college, I worked on a wide range of health issues. I didn't really have like one health problem or health issue that I really was passionate about. I worked on domestic violence, sexual violence. I worked on HIV, AIDS, and other STDs. I worked on alcoholism through research, through coursework, as well as through community-based projects. So all of that kind of really exposed me to a lot of the different types of marginalizations, as well as their impact on people's health. And actually through those experiences, I had met actually two victims of human trafficking, both victims of labor trafficking. And it just kind of sparked my interest in the topic. I ended up taking a course on the issue, as well as looking into organizations here in the area of Houston once I returned to Houston after college. So then I found UHT. And since I'm one of the outreach specialists here, I felt like this position was like really perfect for me because personally, I'm very extroverted. Like, I love talking to people throughout my time during college and right after college. All the positions that I sought out or all the work that I sought out involved kind of direct interaction with these marginalized populations. So I really feel like it was a perfect fit, and I would be crazy not to come here. And it definitely has been everything that I imagined it would be and more, because I tell my mom every day, I love my job. And I think there are a lot of people that can't say that. So I feel really blessed to be able to do this work, and especially alongside awesome coworkers like you guys. So yeah, that's pretty much my story.
That's so sweet. Thank you for sharing that, Brianna.
Yeah.
My name is Sarah Jane, and I am the education specialist with United Against Human Trafficking. So similar to Brianna, it was when I was going to school that I was starting to learn more about social justice issues. So in high school, I was learning more about different social justice issues. And I learned about human trafficking in 2008. I also read a book that kind of changed my perspective. It was called Not for Sale by David Batstone. And that was one of the earliest organizations that was fighting against human trafficking. So once I learned about it and learned how pervasive it was, I was like, this to me is the biggest humanitarian issue that I've seen. Like the fact that there are still slaves essentially, like more than at any other time in history. Like this is crazy, and people are just not really connecting to this. So I went to school, I went to college and got a degree in international relations and French with a minor in peace and conflict studies. And my goal was going to be to go overseas and fight human trafficking somewhere else. But when I graduated from college, I was kind of feeling depressed and didn't really know what to do with myself. So I just looked for somewhere to volunteer. So I ended up volunteering at the American Red Cross. And I have a theater background. I like to perform and do public speaking. So I volunteered doing presentations for them, presentations on emergency preparedness. So I ended up getting hired with them. And while I was doing that, I was still volunteering with different nonprofits out in LA and California that were fighting human trafficking in different ways, but I wasn't able to break into it professionally. So while working at Red Cross, I was giving preparedness presentations, also working in shelters, doing disaster response for earthquakes and home fires, and getting to work in a lot of vulnerable communities and build resiliency in different ways. And it gave me the opportunity to work directly in communities and talk to people and gain professional skills and keep public speaking, which is what I really enjoy. And then I had an unexpected life event last year that I really wanted to move out of California. I lived in California my whole life and I was kind of sick of it. Really wanted to move out. So I was looking specifically for jobs in human trafficking. And then I found that United Against Human Trafficking was looking for an education specialist who would be giving presentations about human trafficking. And it was literally like a light bulb went off. I was like, this is the perfect fit. This is exactly what I want to do and what I'm good at. So I applied and I got the job and I started here in January. And similar to Brianna, this is an amazing job. I love my job. I talk about it all the time. I love the supportive environment we get to work in. I love when I give a presentation and someone comes up to me afterwards and says, like, I had no idea that, you know, so many men were affected, or that, you know, people could be trafficked within their families, or any of these other more nuanced things that we talk about during the presentations. And especially when they say, what can I do now? Can I volunteer? Like, what else can I do? And then we get more people involved in this fight. So yeah, that's my story.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah Jane. So my name is Eleanor Polo, and I'm the Education Outreach Manager at United Against Human Trafficking. My journey to this point has been interesting. It's been a little all over the place. I went to college in Olympia, Washington, and I studied linguistics, computer science, Russian language, like nothing involving social work or anything like that. But I volunteered with this organization called EGGY Hop, the Emma Goldman Youth and Homelessness Outreach Program. And so every single night, 365 days a year, one or two of us would attach a cart of supplies to our bicycles and bike around downtown Olympia and distribute vitamins, hygiene items, blankets. We would collect like food and coffee from restaurants at the end of the night that they didn't give out, distribute food, and just like talk to people. And those were like some of the best nights of my life, just like being frozen in Olympia winters, like just drinking so much coffee with these guys, you know. It was like, it was really powerful, and I learned so much from that. And that's kind of when I realized that that is like the trajectory that I wanted to go down. So I moved back to Houston in 2015, the very end of 2015, and I started working for an adult literacy organization, and I taught adults how to read and write. And that was really, really rewarding, seeing someone learn something new for the first time. I had a student who was in his 60s, and when I first met him, he couldn't read the alphabet. And then one day he came in and was like, "Have you heard of Winston Churchill?" And I was like, "Yeah!" And so it opened up all these new worlds for him. And that was really cool. And I did that for a long time, and it was super rewarding. But I realized that I wanted to help people at an even more fundamental level. And to me, that meant helping people gain back their freedom that they had lost. And I try to approach it in a way of not trying to save someone, but just equipping people with the tools that they need in that moment. And I had always known that human trafficking existed, but when I started working here and seeing the subtleties and all of the nuances that there really are, it was so eye-opening. And I started out as an outreach specialist like Samantha and Brianna, and it was such an amazing job being out there connecting with people, giving them resources that they need, having conversations that they'd never had before, and just starting all these little ripple effects. I just love that. And I've slowly sort of come into different positions here, from an outreach specialist to a lead to a coordinator and now a manager. And I'm just so thankful to work here every day. Not only are the coworkers amazing, our mission is amazing, and I cannot imagine working anywhere else. And I just feel super lucky to be surrounded by all of you guys. So thank you.
All these stories are about to bring a tear to my eyes. Y'all are so awesome. So I'm Taylor. I am program specialist here at UAHT. Throughout my adolescence and growing up, something that was a recurring theme in my life was substance abuse issues. Not me personally, but throughout my family and in my network. So really early on, I knew that I wanted to do some kind of work where I would help people. Originally, I thought it was going to be substance abuse dependency counseling or family recovery counseling, anything that had to do with those general kind of things. So as I kind of was going through college, I was like, well, how do I want to accomplish that? What's the easiest way to get into that work? And I found social work is a thing that you can do with those really specific areas that I wanted to work in. But social work is really broad, and you can find multiple different ways to help and serve different kinds of communities. So I was really amped about that. It was kind of cool. I had a class that I was in, ODSJ, Oppression, Diversity, and Social Justice, and someone from UAHT actually came and spoke at our class about human trafficking, gave a awareness workshop, and it just really stuck with me. The idea that, like Eleanor said, that there were so many people whose freedom had been taken away from them was something that I was on fire for from the get-go. So then my internship for my BSW program, I actually got placed at a school, in a school setting, and I was acting as a student support counselor. And originally I was like, well, I don't know if I want to work with kids. It seems out of my area of expertise. I don't seem prepared for it. And long story short, I found it extremely rewarding. There was a couple of kiddos on my caseload that I got to help in really significant ways. And it was so fulfilling, and kind of rolling with that, I graduated and I got my license to practice. And in searching for jobs, I found UAHT, and I remembered, hey, that's the organization that came and spoke about human trafficking when I was in college. And I actually originally applied for Brianna's position, the outreach specialist, and then found out about the program specialist position that was also open, where now I get to work with youth in all various kinds of settings, so presentation, education, and then those supportive services that we offer. So maybe I didn't end up in like substance abuse, that kind of area, but with human trafficking, it's sort of, I don't remember who said it or if it was even in this take of the call, because we've had a couple. If it was, so human trafficking is not just human trafficking. There are so many different kind of vulnerabilities that are always on the sort of the barrier of every situation. So I'm really happy to be in such a versatile and, like everyone else has said, supportive and encouraging and loving work environment. Y'all are my team, y'all are my family, and I appreciate y'all. And I love these Zoom talks, and I love everybody that we get to work with. So.
Thank you for that, guys. Your stories have been really wonderful to hear. And it kind of, it sounds a lot like how I kind of started too. So I just graduated from my undergrad last May, so about a year ago. My background is in psychology with a minor in sociology. So I had a really deep interest for mental health and social justice issues. And so when I first graduated, I started working at a intensive care home for eating disorders. And as I, got more into my job, I learned a lot of how like a mental disorder was really associated with society as a whole. I learned a lot about diet culture and how a lot of advocates for eating disorders and disordered eating were phrasing it as a social justice issue. And I thought it was amazing how something that I thought was so simple as a disorder was actually so much more interconnected. And I loved my job, but I also got to a point where I realized I wanted to kind of be in a setting where I could grow more professionally. But I still was with the idea that I wanted to learn about something I could be passionate about and like teach other people. And so I knew I wanted to look for a nonprofit in Houston. I was in between DV shelters or DV nonprofits and human trafficking because I think I saw for those two things a lot of overlap with social justice issues. But what really caught my eye, as some of you have said, was the position, which I am an outreach specialist. And for me, it was amazing to see that it was basically like you get to learn about this issue and then you get to go out into your community and talk about it. And I'm not like a super extroverted person. I think I'm a mix of an introvert and an extrovert, but I think I really do enjoy talking about the things that I learn. And so that position really caught my eye. I applied for it, and I can tell you that the culture is totally different in a nonprofit. It's amazing. It's really supportive. And I also, I love my position, but I also love the job and my coworkers.
Thank you for sharing. Thanks everybody for sharing. It's always great to hear stories because some of the stuff I have not heard and I didn't know. But since we're running short on time, just a little bit about me. My name's Albany and I am the education coordinator. And what got me started in this, I was born and raised in Oakland, California, and I've been in Houston now for about almost 7 years. And for me, I've just always been someone who wanted to volunteer, someone who's always given my time to whether it be the homeless, the youth. It started in church. And where I came from, low income community, a lot of kids that I grew up with were either in gangs or killed or, couldn't afford things. And that kind of just hurt my heart. So my mission has always been to do more and then speak for those who, cannot speak. And with me, my background is in communication and sociology. So speaking to people, having that conversation, but then also learning about why people are the way that they are, why are group settings this way. And prior to working at UAHT, I actually worked for a homeless shelter for youth, and one of the girls that I worked with, she had actually been trafficked in Mexico, and she had ran away to this homeless shelter, and she ended up telling me her story, and it was so heartfelt, and I was just like in awe. And that's when I really did my research on human trafficking. Back home, I knew about prostitution, I knew a little bit about human trafficking, but once I moved here and worked for that organization, it just showed me, wow, there are so many young ladies and men that have been trafficked, and I wanted to make sure that it was my mission to be able to speak to youth so they understand what's going on around them and how we can prevent it. So within this organization, I love it. I've been here almost 2 years, and I've gone from youth specialist to youth coordinator and now to education coordinator. And our mission is just to continue this fight, to continue doing what we're doing. A lot of times people don't understand that we work in a nonprofit, and people say, well, it's not a lot of money, but sometimes for us, it's more than that. It's about meeting those people, shaking their hands, giving them hugs, having that conversation, and knowing that they have an organization to look out to, people that understand where they're coming from. And some of us that have been, down in the dumps or may have been in situations similar to what they have been on. And just like everyone else said, I love this organization. I love working here, and am just excited to continue the mission of what we have been doing. So if you're out there looking for a job or wondering, wow, should I get into nonprofit? Should I get into human trafficking, homelessness, anything like that? It's very rewarding. And I know everyone else can support me in backing that up, of saying that every day it's something new. And every day you meet someone new, and it's always a great story to tell at the end of that. So thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much, Albany, and thank you everyone for sharing your stories. I think it really is meaningful for people to see that we're people behind, just employees at this organization.